So, dear and respected friend, thank you so much for joining today's Swadhyaya Chakra talk, or rather dialogue. Today is a very special day for both uh, India as well as Bangladesh. Today is 125 birth anniversary of Subhash Chandra Bose, very important leader. And the only way to celebrate this day is to promise to work towards creating a country Netaji always worked for. So we are going to start today's session with an invocation of a song. So let me just share the screen.
ছাড়া করি না আমি পিনাক বাদির ডমরু ত্রিশূল ধর্মরাজের দণ্ড আমি চক্র মহাশঙ্খ আমি প্রণব নাদ প্রচণ্ড।
Thank you so much for your kind attention. I, Randhir Kumar Gautam, welcome you today's Swadhyaya Chakra talk. And today is a very special day, as well as today is also one of the very red letter day of Indian history. So with the invocation of Qazi Nazrul Islam, we can start today's session. Dear and respected friend, this talk is being co-nurtured by Raffles University, Nimrana, and Vishwaneedam Center for Asian Blossoming, Puducherry and Chennai. The topic of today's webinar is Fundamentalism and Threats of Protest, Bangladesh and the World. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Honorable Speaker, Dr. Ahmed Abid from Asian University for Women, Chittagong, Bangladesh, Professor John Clement from Global Jindal University, Dr. Devendra Tiwari, Professor Kumar Giri, who is a professor from Madras Institute of Development Studies and honorary trustee of executive trustee of Vishwaneedam Center for Asian Blossoming, and all the respected participant, viewers, listeners, both on Google Meet platform and Facebook platform. Let me give a brief introduction to Honorable Speaker. Dr. Ahmed Khan is a documentary filmmaker and PhD in human rights. His doctoral degree awarded from Humanitarian and Development Research Initiative at the School of Social Sciences, Western Sydney University, Australia. His research discipline focuses on culture and media, labor trafficking, and irregular migration, refugee studies and statelessness, social movement studies, fundamentalism, peace, and cultural studies. He has also deep understanding of online activism and social justice and post-colonial studies. He is also a member of United Nations Association of Australia Academic Network. Since 2016, he is attached with Rapid Asia Ltd as an expert on human rights and governance. At present, he is working as field manager of a community disaster risk management study of the same organization. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invitation. Let me also give a brief introduction to our Swadhyaya Chakra, that is Circle of Co-Learning and Self and Mutual Studies. It is an initiative of studying and learning together self, culture, societies, and the world. Friends associated with this are eager to walk and mediate with new horizons of thinking and new movements of social and cultural change at work in our contemporary world. We study seekers such as philosopher Sri Aurobindo, Mahatma Gandhi, Chittaranjan Das, a creative thinker and a creative soul from Odisha, and many others from around the world. We also present our own writings and reflect upon our creativity together. We also invite seekers from different fields of life to share with us their lives, vision, sadhana, and struggles for creating a world of beauty, dignity, and dialogue. We meet every Sunday, or we are, and sometimes on Wednesday also. We are now nurturing this dialogue in collaboration with School of Humanities and Social Science of Raffles University. So with this brief introduction, now I would like to invite Professor Anand Kumar Giri sir to kindly moderate today's session.
Thank you so much, dear Randhir, and good afternoon to all friends co-present, Professor John Clamer, and our dear friend Dr. Abid, who is going to help us into this very important field, Professor Purnima Jayan, and all friends co-present. We have read about very brutal acts of terror. Fundamentalism is one thing, but terror and merciless killing and the bloggers being attacked and killed in public view, and so these are some of the scenes we remember when we are face to face with this topic, fundamentalism and theaters of protest, Bangladesh in the world. Theaters have always created a space to critically rethink our current dominant ideologies, including terrorism, fascism, so on and so forth. In Latin America, along with pedagogy of the oppressed that Paulo Freire nurtured, we also have theaters of the oppressed. And there are varieties of new movements in theater. And one aspect of that is also to overcome the dualism or the line of separation between the performers in theater and those who view it. And a creative theater becomes a place where the viewer also take part in the performative process. Theaters have a potential to radically reconstitute our world, turn things around. And the performative is not only a space, the reproduction of the existing. The performative also becomes a movement and movement of new possibilities. So, along with fundamentalism and acts of terror in Bangladesh, also in India and around the world, we also have creative movements of theater and protest. In India, we had the great theater activist Sabdar Hashmi, who also was brutally murdered in public view while performing the theater. And this street theater, for example, played a very important role in mobilizing for literacy and for social emancipatory projects. It seems that in the current political climate of fundamentalism and also the use of state power to oppress any dissent, in India we had such a remarkable emergence of people's power during the anti-CAA movement. I myself had spent one evening in Sahin Bagh in Delhi, and we all sang together the song Hum Dekhenge, we will see, we will see. So the kind of energy that the anti-CAA movement created, and that was also a moment for a dialogue. It was a call for a dialogue. It was not just anti-state. It was an invitation for us to join in our constitutional project. And this could have been used as an opportunity for dialogue. Instead, even a small child in Karnataka who used a play, and in the play, this child, this girl child, used this term hum jute marenge, I'll beat you with my slipper. And this little girl and her mother were charged with sedition. So voices of protest have much difficulties in those moments, in those times, when state power is abused to such an extent. And in front of that giant power of the Goliath, so still the work of the David and Savitri continues. And this little girl in the classroom who is using the opportunity of a play to articulate a sense of disgust and the theaters and new possibilities. So we will be discussing some of these issues as we are nurtured and helped by Professor Ahmed Abidur Raja Khan. So we are grateful to him for his participation. I have been in communication with him, and our dear Abid Bhai has not been in the best of health in the last 2 days. But it is his generosity and love for theatre and knowledge that has brought all of us together. So, Professor Khan, please.
Thank you very much, Professor Ananta and the online audience. It's a pleasure to meet you all online and share about my personal experience in theater and what have I seen and the half-century life. Although the title of topic is broader, but I would like to share my experience from my personal experience. Let me share the screen. Is there any difficulties? You can hear me?
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Yes, thank you very much. Earlier, I was working with Randhir. It seems like that there were some difficulties. Now I'm sharing the slide. Can you see the slide? Can you see my?
No, sir.
No, it's not visual.
No, sir.
Yes, yes. Let me try again.
There is an option of present now. Just
Present
click.
now.
Yes.
And the entire screen.
Yes, yes.
And I'm trying that. And I think I'm going to do.
Yes, I think now you can see.
It depends on internet connectivity. And is it coming up? I don't know. I turned on a presentation. It's supposed to be there. Is it there?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Okay. So thank you very much, Professor Ananta, that giving me opportunities to share my experience on fundamentalism and theater of protest, Bangladesh and the world. I will discuss this topic from my personal experience as a group theater activist and academic. I grew up in a society where we started students movement in 80s, late 80s. And so I grew up with the student movements. I wanted to join the political parties, the leftists. Later on, I found myself in the group theater movement in Bangladesh. So it was early 80s. And then I was involved with group theater movement in Bangladesh for more than a couple of decades. Later on, because of my destiny and livelihood, I end up a human rights regime. I had gone through personal experience of human rights violation. In the year 26th of March, which is our Independence Day, no, it's not Independence, Victory Day. I was covering an event in front of a public university in a remote city, Sylhet, where a group of anarchists, or we can call them fundamentalist mob, attack on me, and brutally they broke my right hand into pieces. They used local knives and club stuff or other things, beat me up from head to toe. It took me 1.5 years to come back to a regular life. My right hand is totally broken, and the left side of my body, also the nerve on my right hand and my leg are damaged. I don't want to say myself as a kind of disabled person, but I have some limitation. By mentioning this experience of 21 years earlier allows me to see the world of fundamentalism from Bangladeshi context. And that allows me to learn about the rights and practices around the world. I still remain in the world of theater, but my mode of exercise changed. I became a researcher of theater. So when I do my first master degree in Thailand on human rights, I did my thesis on human rights education and application of community theater. So this talk is mostly the personal experience on the perspective of fundamentalism that is a growing phenomenon in Bangladesh since before the independence and now and around the world. However, I would limit it into my whatever I have seen in Asia and how the theater group are working. Basically, I would like to draw the attention of the work of 3 larger groups working outside Bangladesh. That is one in India, Jannat Manch Janam, and Makampam Theatre Group in Thailand, and the other one is Nautanki Theatre Company in Western Sydney, Australia, ASEAN Pacific. As it is a whole topic, I have to focus and narrow it down to give you some idea or taste. Thank you very much. If you have any questions or comments, you can ask me later on. I was really feeling uncomfortable for the last few days. There is a high rise of infection in the society. Government has declared a couple of weeks off to the academic institution except ours where I work. But my health condition is still poor and weak. So I urged Professor Ananta that whether we could postpone it. He requested me to carry on, but it will be a short lecture. Thank you very much. See, this is the performance of Nautanki Theatre in their 4th. The slide, the performance or photo you can see, this is the performance of Bengali play, Devi Charpo Manta. It's written by one of the Bengali theatre dramatists and performed by a group of Bengali actor Angik in 2019 South Asian Theatre Festival in Western Sydney. So this is a community theatre practice where in a remote area in any Pacific outside of cultural land, they are creating theatre of protest and hegemony there in terms of a call of time and creating a new community of cultural resistance. From there, I would like to draw your attention. Maybe you have heard a lot about that. There are a lot of assault on minority community in Bangladesh, especially in some events using the social media and Facebook technology in the naming, shaming, the assault on puja mandaps, and that's happening. The sensitive community and people, secular community, civil society, and all the people who think Rationally, they don't like it, but it's a part of politics. We cannot avoid it. Here, such incident happens in Bangladesh in 2021 during the time of Durga Puja. And you can see a couple of pictures. The theater department in front of Dhaka University organized the first performance against this terror activity and heinous activity. And so the other theater group organized. Both the performance took place. So, coining the term fundamentalism is a kind of narrow vision of some ideology, I would say, and but some religious ally or some group of religious community use these tools for their political achievement or some other issues. Most of the time in countries like Bangladesh, some Muslim-based religious community use this to create a terror or share the most of the part of power for their existence. This kind of incident we cannot avoid. This is the part of our reality, like we are living in a new normal life at this moment. However, there are always rational people, and group theater emerged as post-liberation was successful cultural movement in Bangladesh since 1971. So it is the group theater activist or amateur theater activist. I'm telling amateur theater activist because they do perform theater as a non-professional. They don't get paid for it. They do this is a kind of based on their ideology, and they want to share their idea. They want to perform the good for the society. It's a kind of pedagogy and practice. In Marxism, maybe they call it praxis. So this is the soldier of the society or volunteer of the society. They engage themselves for this kind of social activity to create a space and bring out the voice of unheard people or people who are marginalized. This is the way I can show you the nice or good or ugly scene or scenario of Bangladeshi community and cultural resistance. Thank you very much. But this is not the end. This started long ago. Actually, the theater practices started in Bangladesh or Bengal during the time of colonial period. So these cultural resistance and protest against so-called fundamentalist elites, especially some religion-based narrow activities or terror, started long ago when British developed a kind of act that is called Dramatic Performance Act in 1876 to control the criticism of the society. Bengal was the conscious part of India, and most of the good thinker or people who are involved with Bengal Renaissance live in Bengal, especially in West Bengal, Kolkata. Whatever it is, the British couldn't control the power of performance and teach people, aware about people. So that was kind of structure of the society through the IPTA movement, Indian People's Theatre Association movement. And a lot of Bengali and other theatre activists were born or came out. They developed their own theatre group and they moved forward. At the same time, when Bangladesh was being separated with West Pakistan, there are cultural difference with the two part of the society and two part of the location of the state. There are more than 2,000 kilometer differences between the two part of the state. However, there are language barrier or differentiate of language, culture, even including eating habit. And there was discrimination, systemic discrimination by the political power that raises language movement. The language movement raised in Bengal or Bangladesh on secular ideology. So the language movement come up with a dialogue or slogan that Banglar, Hindu, Buddha, Muslim, Christian, Amra Bangali. We Bengali all are Muslim, Buddhist, Christian, Hindus. We are Bengali. These slogans comes out the theater activists, performance activists, writers, poets, free thinkers during the time of 1952 liberation. But it has a legacy and that ended up in the liberation war, you know. Liberation war, before the liberation war, dramaturgs were being exercised even in central jail by the Munir Chaudhary, our language martyr, our 1971 liberation martyr, who has been killed by the Pakistani ally and collaborator of Pakistani during the time of liberation. So theater and showing protest with the tools of theater is a kind of inherent quality of the conscious Bengali youth and educated people in all academic settings. So theater, when there was no theater department in academic setting, because all the theater department emerged around public university in Bangladesh, late 80s or 90s. Until then, theater being practiced by the young educated people who are conscious. So, however, after the liberation war, theater emerged as a successful tool of liberation or to educate the people and construct the people and citizen of the country, around the country. It goes more than 3 decades. The successful group theater movement engaged all the cultural performance activists around the world. With that network and democratic students movement, the citizens of Bangladesh were able to topple down military junta in 1990. So if someone going to see what had happened in the history of Bangladesh, because after the independence in 1975, when the leader of nation were being killed with his whole family, and the dark age remained on the map and horizon of Bangladesh for nearly 1.5 decades until 1990, because 2 military junta was in power. During that time, the street theater movement emerged against fundamentalism and against autocracy. So the street theater movement during that time facing the same British Act. So we have to take permission. I was a performer. I joined the theater, amateur theater. You can say that every time we go, we have to apply to the police for taking permission for performing a stage performance. The Awami League government, when it came to power first, after the election 1990, they diminishes this act. So legacy of a bad act and struggle of theater activists against this kind of fundamentalist acts were finally being successful. What I am going to say that post-liberation war theater movement by the group theater activists, especially during that time when that was a dark age and all the religion-based political elite systematically being replaced or re-established in the politics of Bangladesh, the vibrant theater movements, especially street theater movements of 80s and 90s, came out and identified those powers. However, there was a limit. There are technological development and internet came to our daily life as a part of life. So, and the crises of the mega cities like traffic jam and other limitations made people's life quite measurable to join in leisure time to perform or to see a theater in a specific theater, because theaters are limited, days are limited, city is mega and people's time is short and people could get stuck in the traffic jam. Whatever it is, our reality, life is changing. The legacy I'm talking about you regarding Bangladesh and strong theater movements, especially about the fundamentalist elite, was being performed where the second warfare against the fundamentalism being moved non-violently, being done non-violently in Shahbag, when the nation cried for a just to bring all the war criminals under the law, and it worked. There was a cry of justice after the independence Bangladesh, because all the war criminals and collaborators who are from Muslim political party background were set free through the military junta and legal process and being established. So when Awami League government came to power second time in 2008, they had a mandate that if they could get back to power, they will try the war criminals. When under the national legal system, when crime against humanity trial was going on, their young people had kind of suspect that there's something going on within the government party, and the party leaders who had been trying. So they took the street. They forced the government, and government has to change the law. So that is the all you know. That is the another victory, another civil war or Bangladesh war movement in 2013 performed by the young Shahbagi activist. But there are drawbacks. Although based on communal harmony and liberation war and resisting fundamentalism, Shahbag movement bring a great success of new social movement with the new media and occupying the space. But when these fundamentalist Ali understood that they have no other choice because they are going to meet their act, what they have did, committed crime. So they started killing bloggers, free thinkers, one by one, since the Shahbag movements. It goes, it continues, next, consequently, few years until 2015. So more than a dozens of people, free thinkers and activists, online activists, have been slaughtered by matches in broad daylight. And after each killing, the fundamentalist Ali put their post on social media. We did this act. We performed this act. We killed someone who is non-believer. They created terror of violence around the whole country. So all the cultural activists and conscious citizens had to go undercover. That is a dark period of our time. However, I can say you, as I have shown it, whenever any kind of heinous activity, even within the government or outside the government took place, our young force, students, activists, cultural activists took the streets. This is a kind of briefing what had happened since the colonial legacy until 2021, especially until the Shahbag movement, with the resistance, cultural resistance with the power of theater, perform, occupying space in Bangladesh. So I would say, being a practitioner, theater practitioner, we have a vibrant history of positive contribution to the society through the theater movements and cultural activism. Now, I would like to go back thousands years back, because these 300 or 400 years history of theater activism, politics, is not only the theater history of Bengal or Bangladesh. Fortunately, I got an opportunity to study in University of Dhaka, where in 90s, early 90s, the Department of Theatre and Performing Arts were being developed as a subsidiary department. So I, a student of subsidiary department, there I met a theatre guru, or he has been called magician of theatre, and he is one of the disciple of NSD, Ibrahim Al-Qazi. His name is Syed Jamil Ahmed. He did vivid research on centristic theater and performance of Bengal. And he did come up with his research in Achin Paki Infinity Indigenous Theater of Bangladesh. He has come up with 9 types of indigenous performance, synchronistic performance, that is not at the same time secular, but that is identified with different culture, religion, sect-based performance have been practiced in Bengal before the birth of Christ, since the time of Maurya Gupta. Here, I'd like to introduce you the name of those kind of performance. Performance related to Krishna and Chaitanya. Maybe most of you know more than me about Chaitanya and his movements and Krishna. Performance related to Ramachandra. A Muslim performer, I have seen a Muslim performer is performing the Ramayana at night, and whole the night he is performing the Ramayana. In the morning, when it is prayer time of Fajr, he performed the Salat, means Fajr, and then he said, this is the end of today's performance. That was a syncretic culture created by the peasants community, lower class community, non-educated, so-called non-educated community of Bengal. That was the cultural fabric of East Bengal. And it follows up with the performance related to Shiva and Kali, performance related to Manasa. We have a lot of performance related to Manasa and Paji still are being performed by the local folk performer Kobial in different area and different season. Now, Bangladesh Shilpakala Academy and Ministry of Culture created special effort to collect these, record these, and allow these to perform this kind of rare religion-based or indigenous performance in a certain period of the year. Some of them even work, some of these local folk performers work as a teacher in different university to teach the university students. You can see, I'm going to show you one picture of Mother period garden. You see how this photograph is taken by Jamil Ahmed in 1995. It is taken from one of his articles. How is community surrounded by, and a leader is performing with his dohar, who is performing on harmonium in a community and playing this. These kind of local performance used to perform there this way over the years, thousands of years. So if someone going to say that we have these urban theater practice, cultural resistance for the last 3 years, I would like to say maybe you miss some dots. Performance related to Buddhism and Nath cult was another sect, number 5. And finally, there are a lot of performance related to Muslim saint and legendary heroes. One of the performance related to Muslim heroes, Mother Peer, Gajiri Gan. So performance related to Gaji or performance in the area of Sundarban. And there are secular performance. Secular performance, also indigenous performance. And there are some hybrid performance, like performance related to Kali or performance related to Muslims. They hybrided over the ages. Some Kobial village bird composes their own play, their own way. Those becomes hybrid. That is a practice of last 1,000 years also. So if you are going to say, if someone going to say the polity of fundamentalism, which I would say a part of British political practice infected our community since the colonial period, is a new reality of our society. But there were jamindars and there were rich people during the feudal system of the society. These people who were bird, who were folklorists, who were singer, they develop their plays like Chandravati, they perform in the public, and they have to find a way how to continue their artwork performance in a hostile situation of the society. So this is a kind of cultural resistance developed in Bengal, not only for last 300 or 400 years. It started with the performance related to Chaitanya and cultural sect. It continues to the performance related to secularism and Muslim saints. That is my argument. Thank you very much. I don't know how much I can give you in a nutshell what has happened in Bengal and how what has been done in cultural performance in our community. But according to my experience, I would like to share some of the other parts of the theater practices in the world. Some of you already know, as Professor Ananta mentioned about Sabdar Hasmi. Sabdar Hasmi created a theater performing space or Jannat Manch based in Delhi. They used to take the street theater to the Jhopriwala or to the mass people, factory workers, indifferent people with their small, tiny jeeps and instrument, and they perform. They said their philosophy is that the person who is adult, he can understand the reality of life enough. So you don't have reality to teach him what is society. But yes, through the theater, we can communicate them. We can connect them to create a space where they can raise their voice. That's their philosophy. They have been performing since 1970s. And now you can see around Delhi, around the markets, around the jhopris, lower class people are very much conscious about their rights, isn't it? I would say, I don't know, a government like Kejriwal came to power and giving leverage to the lower class working people for their electricity, water, all these things. I would like to say, that's my observation. I worked with this theater group for more than 6 months. and I have seen their performance closely. That is a contribution to the human rights education they develop to this group of people through the theater. So this is a theater group. They work with the leftist party. They have one ideologue that theater is a cultural tool and to make people aware and each part of a political practice. That's why they use the term political theater. I haven't seen such direct argument or direct information about political theater with other theater practice in other part of the world, like the Machampam theater. There are a lot of thresholds who were communist around the country because of the Vietnam warfare and growing up communism since 1950s and 60s around the Mekong Belt, especially Southeast Asian country. But I have seen they develop community theater, and in remote areas where I did my community theater study for my master's in Thailand, in remote hilly area, they made a curricula with the theater where they make aware about drugs and other evil of the society. So that's how they educate the community, and they develop a national practice of using theater and engaging young people in practice of theater. That's the kind of cultural resistance I have seen in my life in Thailand. Makampam is not the only group. During this military junta period, so far as I know, 5 or 6 years ago, few volunteers of Makampam sent to jail because they criticized the monarchy or they raised a question about the legitimacy of the present military junta. Maybe you could search and find it. Makampam website is not visible maybe nowadays, but both the group have well-informed, well-written website. And recently, the Jannat Munch developed their own theater space in Delhi. You know that. And the Makampam Theater Group have their office also, and they have their theater lab in Chiang Rai also. So they are a group of close people. They practice and they develop their establishment over the ages, and they contributed to society. They contributed to society through the cultural tool and practices and all the fundamentalist early. I have seen Sudhana Deshpande leading the huge rally against the Bush in 2006 on the street of Delhi. This is my experience. I have got another experience how the South Asian community engaged themselves and creating a third space of harmony and social cohesion in a country of indigenous land theater over there, the Nautanki Theater Company and other community theaters over there. So here I would like to stop. I could go more, but I'm not feeling really well, feeling uncomfortable, but like health-wise. But if you have any questions to me about the theater process, you can ask me. I will remain here to respond to your question. Thank you very much.
Okay. Professor Ahmed, can I speak here? I'm Professor Kalpana. I'm Professor Kalpana Purohit, Chairperson of English Department from Jodhpur, Rajasthan. It was interesting, very interesting and enriching deliberation. I'm sorry if, since you are not keeping well, I was just wondering, what about the status of performance theatre in Bangladesh these years?
Okay, it's a general question. Would you like to narrow it down, or
Yes, narrow it down because you're not well and you're feeling uncomfortable. We'll keep in touch with each other later, but just want to know about.
Now, see, the reality is that during the time of pandemic, for the last 2.5 years, activities of cultural groups really redeemed, and really their spaces have been narrowed down. I myself started to work directing a play, but because of we cannot make clear and direct contact, we have to postpone it. So it is recent reason due to pandemic. But however, Professor Jamil Ahmed and his team, other team, they are on stage now. So theater on stage is going on. But the vibrant space of activist theater, street theater, still a little bit away, because you know what is going on in Bangladesh. You can guess.
Yeah. Because my friends and I've been associated with theater groups, and we all have gone to online. But before pandemic, I think it's very popular here in India. People are interested nowadays, even in small towns, you know. So I was wondering are people, general public, interested in watching these plays, and what's the status in Bangladesh?
Now, for the last week, from Friday, all the academic institutions have been signed off for a couple of weeks because the contamination infection rate is really high, more than 60%.
Okay.
Having said that, because that will allow to young people to engage and see, but there is a 100 years of celebration and 50 years of independence going on. So all the branches of Silpakala Academy, Silpakala means that Art and Performance Academy, they are performing plays, especially some of the plays are on genocide and liberation war. So those are the mass plays, in common plays. Those are going on different parts of the country. But access is limited, and as due to third wave of pandemic, people now feel that they cannot avoid the reality of the SARS-CoV virus. So people have to be careful about it.
Right.
But in a way, in general, countryside practice are still open. Theater are open in the cities, but there are some recent phenomena we have to consider those.
Okay, I'd like to read some dramatists over there, but as for now, I wish you all the keep taking care of yourself, and thank you so very much, Dr. Ananta and other organizers. It was really very enriching session for me. I'll keep in touch, Professor Ahmed. Please do take out time to respond to my questions later. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I developed this presentation within very short time, because I could have speak more with evidence and a lot of in details. But
it was wonderful. Let me add, sir, it was wonderful, listening to you, and it definitely gave us an idea about the kind of theater you people have there, and kind of you tracing the history and genesis of theater there. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome, Professor Kalpana.
So thank you, Professor Khan, and thank you, Professor Purohit. We will now continue our discussion further. So we will not burden you too much, Dr. Abid.
Okay.
So you please listen to us, and you can take a little note of some of the thoughts.
Okay.
And you can kindly listen to some thoughts of our friends co-present here. So to begin with, I invite Professor John Clement, please, to share his thought.
Thank you, Ananta, and thank you very much indeed, Professor Khan. That was, as Professor Kalpana just said, that was extremely educational to actually hear from a specialist in contemporary theatre and indeed the history of theatre in Bangladesh. The Bengali-speaking world, both in Bangladesh and now in India, of course, had a very, very rich tradition of theatre of not only theatre of protest, but theatre that's engaged, I think, with social issues in so many ways. now including in things that I'm aware of, including environmental questions, gender questions, HIV/AIDS, all sorts of stuff. So thank you very much for that sketch of a lot of what is going on in Bangladesh at the moment. And again, I hope many of us can follow up on that, or perhaps have some personal experience. Ananta asked me to just make a few comments, as a bit of a commentator. These are not directly questions to you, but they're thoughts that your presentation has stirred up. So for what they're worth, let me throw out a few ideas, okay? See if they resonate with people. It wasn't a question that you directly addressed, but this question of fundamentalism itself is a very fascinating one. And of course, there are many people who've been debating this. Where does it come from? What does it reflect? Is it a response, a reaction to modernism? Maybe misguided response to modernism, but exactly how you would explain this rise of this phenomenon, which we've seen in the last decade or so. This appearance of fundamentalism in many contexts. And of course, the word itself has, in a sense, quite respectable origins, right? As far as I know, in English, the word was first used to mean, as the word suggests, fundamentals. And I think it was used primarily in a Christian context, when 19th century Christians, faced with indeed the challenges of things like Darwinism, we're trying to define what was the actual basis of their faith. And of course, there were people who came up with this idea of the fundamentals, by which I think many of those 19th century Christians meant a very literal reading of the Bible. But this idea, I think, is of course extended to other areas. But leaving aside all those very interesting questions about where fundamentalism comes from, is it indeed a response to modernity? Is it a kind of misguided attempt to search for meaning of some kind in a world that large numbers of people, particularly young men, find meaningless, and they're searching for some kind of certainty? Is a very interesting question. But that was not the primary thing you took up. I think, if I can reflect a little bit on what you said yourself, I wonder if we can also think about, and perhaps we could think about fundamentalism itself as a kind of performance. That's to say, an attempt to operate in relation to the world, to affect the world through certain kinds of activity. And if read in that kind of way, it maybe begins to make a little more sense. One could read it in a kind of semiotic way. One could look at fundamentalism not simply as a kind of negative kind of religious or socio-religious movement, but as something with very interesting features in itself, if one were to stand back from its possibly negative dimensions and simply examine it, as it were, in a fairly neutral way, as a kind of social movement. So that's just one thought. Can fundamentalism itself be read as a form of performance? Now, of course, what you've talked about as a counter-performance, right, in a sense, to that sense of fundamentalism. But in doing so, I think you've raised 2 or 3 very fundamental questions for anybody concerned with cultural analysis to think about. Cultural resistance, as you suggested, is extremely important and neglected field, I think. If I'm a sociologist, but if you look at the huge literature on social movements which exists, whether historical ones, more contemporary ones, you're looking at feminism, you're looking now at environmental movements. I lived in Japan for a long time, where the anti-nuclear movement is very strong, for example. Very rarely does the literature on social movements include the study of cultural movements, whether those are performative ones of the kind you've talked about, or whether they're in fact other kinds of artistic movements. But if you do in fact examine cultural resistance or cultural movements as a form of social movement, I think it's extremely interesting, because you find often that such movements are in fact in the vanguard. They are the kind of movements which begin to redefine fashion, they begin to redefine sexuality, they begin to redefine, any number of forms of public behavior. That's to some extent where they start before they enter in a more pervasive way into the rest of society. So I think what was extremely interesting about what you were saying is the way in which you have foregrounded cultural resistance as a form of social movement, as a form of potentially transformative movement. That's the second issue, I think, which is very interesting. You know, a lot of us are concerned in one level or another with cultural or social transformation, you know, how to create the kind of change which would be positive, given the huge range of social problems that, you know, our planet now faces. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think one of the things that I found implied in what you said was that whereas many of the more conventional ways of creating social change have not necessarily worked in the way in which their authors expected, in looking at not only performance, but I mean artistic movements in general, we might find clues to transformative mechanisms which are non-violent, you know, which are attractive to people. They appear on the surface to be non-political, although as you suggested, this is often not the case, of course. These traditions can be deeply political, but not using a language of conventional politics as their kind of transformative vocabulary. So I think to point to that is an extremely interesting way that we should all perhaps think about. I mean, how can we take that idea forward to think about the way in which cultural movements, cultural resistance are potentially very powerful ways of generating social change across a wide spectrum. I particularly raise this question because, you know, I work myself in this kind of field, and you often come across people who will say, you know, the arts are really interesting, but they don't have an effect on society. You know, they're peripheral, or they're kind of icing on the cake. You know, the real things are economics, the real things are politics, and of course those are real things. But I think we should broaden our vocabulary here to think a little bit about the way in which cultural transformation is in fact a fundamental part of broader social transformation. And as I suggested earlier, may even be in the vanguard of that kind of transformation. So my final point is simply this. Many people would see fundamentalist movements as a kind of challenge, actually, to peace and justice. You know, they have a tendency to violence. They have a tendency to, obviously, by their very nature, a kind of extreme sectarianism, extreme lack of tolerance of alternative points of view. But yet, if one wanted to challenge such movements, I think there are at least two ways of doing it. I mean, the first obvious way is simply argue with them. You know, we think you're wrong. We think you've got this wrong. You've misread the scriptures of your religion. You've misread the way in which those scriptures should be translated into action. That's one obvious way to do it. But the other way would be to attempt to enter into a kind of dialogue. And I think to enter into dialogue, you have to listen to people. And to listen to people, you have, in one sense, to take very seriously what they are saying. And I think this is an interesting approach to fundamentalism. To ask people what is it they really mean? What is it they are really trying to do in the world? And is that in fact the way, the most effective way of intervening in the world? That might have a transformative effect on fundamentalists, of course, because they might come to realize that whatever their fundamental motives are, the methods that they're using are really not the most appropriate to creating, positive change. So just with those ideas, sorry, they're not questions to you, Professor Khan, but they're thoughts that your talk stimulated in me, right? The more sort of theoretical issues, as well as what I learned tremendously about the history and contemporary practice of theatre in Bangladesh. I have not been in Bangladesh for years. It must be about a decade ago, and I was in Dhaka. But I think maybe the time is right now for a return to actually confront. To meet with some of these movements in person. So thank you so much. I really enjoyed your presentation. Thank you, Ananta.
Thank you, Professor Clement. Professor Khan, you may take note of a few thoughts and will request you to come at the end, not to tax you too much.
Okay.
So dear friends, now we have many friends co-present. I also see some new friends co-present. I see Gulshan Mullah. Would you like to share some thought, please? Okay, we have a question from Professor Purnima Jain. Professor Jain, you can ask this question yourself. Please unmute.
Yeah, it was a pleasure listening to the
And
speakers.
you can open your video. We can see you, please.
Okay, sure.
If possible.
Yeah, sure.
Professor John teaches at Dayanbagh Institute in Agra.
Yeah, okay. Is it visible?
Yeah, it is not. No, it's not visible. It's all right.
Okay, I'll just open from my mobile. Just a minute.
Yes, yes. Now it is coming. Yes.
Oh, is it coming? Video is coming?
Yes, it is coming. Please.
Yes.
1 minute. Yeah, it is coming. So it was a pleasure listening to both the speakers, particularly John Clemmer, because he is also a sociologist and I am teaching sociology here in my university. So I just wanted to know how the process of globalization has affected the nature of fundamentalist movement and its impact on society and culture.
Okay, thank you, Professor John. Now I invite Gyan Luigi, please.
Yes, excuse me. I'm audible.
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much. It was really very interesting, and I noticed many points on which I have to reflect. But well, perhaps the question which I would like to ask in this moment is how much the drawbacks of the dramatic performances act influence now to the legislation of the different countries which were interested by the DPA of 1876, because I think they could help us perhaps to a more general reflection on the drawbacks and on the effects of colonialism. The colonialism is something which can be eliminated completely in which it is exercised. But unfortunately, colonialism remains in the mind after much time after that the colonialism has effectively ended. And so my question would be this: how much the influences of the DPA of 1876 are present yet in the different legislation of the country. Thank you very much. It was really very interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gyan. And now, Minoti, please.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Minoti.
Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Ananta, for inviting me to speak. I first want to thank Dr. Ahmed for his very interesting and very informative presentation. As I myself is also, I write, I could see many perspectives in his, presentation, how, the urge to just protest through the art. So, just one thing I was just thinking, in our Odisha, actually, to take any general ideas to the grassroots level. So the government is planned now to do the street theater, pala, folk songs, and all other things. Even whenever I write some poetry or some such stories, I find it only caters to the people who read or who really understand. So there are some breeding thoughts also to take the short stories into the short film form and things. I would like to ask Dr. Ahmed that how does he take or educate or spread the message or the ideas of the theater outside the audience? How does he take it to the grassroots level? This is one question. And second thing is whether it should be the part of everyday school's curriculum, unlike that now it is only the part of few specific schools or college or universities. So, thank you. If time permits, I would like to read a poetry at the end. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Minati. So we have Drupadi Ghosh. Would you like to share some thought?
No, sir. I mean, thank you. I'm just listening. I'm a good listener, And sir said, better to listen. So I'm just kind of trying to listen to everyone, and that's the basic of anthropology. So listen to people and observe people. Thank you so much, and thank you, Randhir, for inviting. It was a good session, and I look forward to it. Thanks and respect to everyone.
Where are you based, Drupadi?
I'm based in Bengal, but I'm a student in Jamia Millia Islamia. I'm still a PhD scholar there, but I'm professionally an artist. I'm a sculptor, basically.
Oh, lovely.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And now, Randhir, please.
Thank you so much, sir. And it was really very, very insightful presentation. And I really endorse the argument statement made by Professor John Clement. The question of, because I'm a sociology student, so I'm just thinking how, what are the group processes that lead to fundamentalism? Of course, there is a fear of death, or rather a kind of personal annihilation. But also, as Jean-Paul Sartre and Hegel, they talk about the fear of rage in the face of very existence of other human being whose presence and intentions are experienced as obstacles of one's desire. But I'm just thinking about a culture which is emerging. It is everywhere. We can see danger of worldwide. The repression of the dissent, and we can see the Bavarian thesis of disenchantment has failed, as invoked by Peter Berger, very important sociologist, that the world today, in some exceptions, is a fiercely religious as it was ever, and in some places more than ever. So I am just thinking that the emergence of fundamentalism and the culture, as also invoked by Habermas, who regarded religious Islamic fundamentalism as a uniquely, modern disruptions. Definitely, when we think about the desecularization thesis, of course, there is a emerge, and we can see the significance of the space, a space for the artist, a space for, I think, theater is a space where there is a significant dissent throughout the history. We can see, even we can see in Dalit Panther movement and many part of in India also. And what is happening in also India and also some part of the world, that we are, even the state is helping cultural religious right group to suppress the voice of dissent, and this is emerging everywhere. So how we can solve this issue, whether institution can be our reference point, whether we can have a space for theater in schools. What is happening in JNU, you can see, state is repressing. You can't have one poster of any student. I can see one of my friend, he made one poster, and he was suppressed by his supervisor, that what are you doing? Activism has no scope. So it means what, I'm just trying to understand the role of a state in repressing that political space or public sphere in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Randhir. Now we have Shobharani Acharya, Srimati Shobharani Acharya. She's an inspiring teacher and educator in Odisha. So Shobha, please. Shobha, please unmute yourself. Okay, so she is taking some time. I see Saji very quickly. Saji. Okay. Now I request Professor Khan to please.
I just happened to join, sir.
Okay, then
the timing and just came in.
Okay.
So
then,
a second. I didn't even know who was speaking, but
okay. So then we would, since you came in, maybe you can. Would you like to still speak?
Aspects that interest me is about it's our close neighbor. Even I live in a region where which has the boundary of Bangladesh, at least Tripura and Meghalaya, two of our states, very closely in contact with the people of Bangladesh. They are our good brothers and sisters across the border. Professor Ahmed, I missed whole of the deliberation, but I live in Meghalaya, which is the closest state bordering your country. Some of the governments which you have experienced there, I was told that they were in favor of harboring the militancy which is rather prevalent in this region, and they had a very safe haven in Bangladesh. How, if you have any idea about how is the situation at present and how our brothers, the condition of our brothers, we are also told that there are villages which the Khasis and the Garos of Meghalaya occupy. How are they? Are they well settled? Are they being helped by the governments in Bangladesh? This is my concern. I'm sorry for having come very late due to some other.
Okay, Saji, thank you. Thank you.
Any history of this? If you could kindly throw some light on this. Maybe you have even touched upon this, I'm unaware.
No, it is not. It is not related to our topic, Saji. So, but in any case, so we would now request Dr. Khan to speak. But before he speaks, I just wish to add a thought that yes, as John has said, dialogue with forces of fundamentalism is very important. But as once it has been said, that what is the power of dialogue in the face of the concentration camp? The reality is that in front of the machete holders, and therefore my query is that the machete holders would come and just cut people into pieces. Now, along with these manifestations of just raw killing power, now in this fundamentalist space, are there also some others who want to share their ideas and who maybe have an element of listening? So if you can kindly enlighten. So now, Dr. Khan, please.
Thank you very much, Professor Ananta, and nice audience. Excuse me for a second, I have to open the door. I'm the only one at the back side of the home, and there is a renovation going on. So allow me to open the door, I will come back. Okay, within a second. Sorry, I moved to a new flat provided by the university. There is some renovation work going on. So I would like to thank you, Professor Ananta, again. If I could get much time, I could get, and I feel well, I would be happy to respond to all your questions. I will try to get back to all the questions one by one, as much as I can say that. But I would like to start with Professor Ananta's the matchet things, the matchet holders and how. This is a new kind of theater performance, and this is a phenomenon of the society at present days. That is also a kind of radical performance, extremist performance by a group of believer. They think that if they do perform this kind of activity, they are doing good, or they are performing duty of their own religion. So it has been believed by them, according to my realization, I am an activist also, that if they're gonna kill an atheist, so they will get rewarded. Point is how this kind of ignorance being injected in a brain of human being of modern time. This is our society. They did it, and they did it successfully. So most of the time, when a matchet holders have been found and been arrested, these people are from religion school background. But please do not take note that they are from madrasa. While I was making my film on Rohingya boat people, I found different groups of Rohingya are connected with fundamentalist or ultra-religious activist ally. I didn't put it intentionally on my film because showing 2 or 3% or 2-3 group, I couldn't generalize a specific community. This is out of ethics, and I couldn't do that. So everyone have to say, the way Dr. Saji was been asking that religious militancy is growing in Bangladesh, and how our community, I don't know, Dr. Saji, what does he mean by our community? I am your community, I'm your brother, I'm your next door neighbors. Are you asking about me? Are you caring about me? Are you caring about the believers who believe in Sanatani religion or practitioner? I'm a bit confused. So, see, confused people create confusion and provoke people to entertain or to take part in activities that also been interpreted as an act of fundamentalism. So some people might have narrow view. I see these things this way. As I said that I have been attacked by the fundamentalist, Islamic religion-based fundamentalists. I could have taken asylum, but I see these people are ignorant. They have been invoked by a group of political people. They have special interest to raise some crisis on politics and national political weather, so they could perform something of their interest. The whole system of world order and politics around the world has changed. You cannot argue with people in a table in a rational way, because after sometimes maybe they provoke you to do something or argue or shout at you. Irrational people are increasing. Irrational activities are increasing. Is not that kind of fundamentalism? So when Randhir was asking awareness, where is my political space? This is my political place. I have taken a couple of classes in the morning I was not interested to talk to you, but being a practitioner, being an activist, and being a theater practitioner, I can give you much more information rather than any other person outside the community. So that's why I take part and participate in this. And this is not non-political. I have a politics. I have a politics to work with you. I have a politics to trust you. I have a trust politics to develop a cultural bondage and develop a cultural transformation. That's what I believe. Without politics, nobody exists. This kind of cultural resistance, what I inform, and the professor informed, yes, this is a cultural transforming process. I do agree with them. It is not, quote unquote, typically informed by the Janam political theater, because the way hybrid theater and performance community theater developed around the Mekong region during the time of strict oppression on the activist to stop communist movement. So the way they have been picked up and been tortured, they didn't have any other choice to develop a community organization and practice community theater. It depends on the time, practice, politics, and environment. It could be simple community theater, what you see in Thailand. It is the same, the theater, political theater, what I have seen in Delhi, performed by only one specific group, Chennai monks. Or it could be same vibrant theater movement in Bangladesh. And I have seen Bengali theater, Bengali people are practicing theater in the island of Aboriginal people in Australia. Why do that, perform that? Because they want to engage a dialogue, engage with the people. Theater is a space of engaging dialogue. What dialogue would allow you? Dialogue would allow you to listen to other voice, and dialogue would allow you to convey your message, but you have to be compassionate. So that will create a space of check and find out the other way, new ways to move forward in the society. Theater always create this space. According to the Brecht, according to Professor Soya Jamil Ahmed, I do trust on this. I am in a dialogue with this community of audience, and I'm saying you that when the activities of rational people increase, and when they could contribute to the society as an opinion leader, community leader, lot of miscommunication, communication gap will decrease, and there will be bondage. It could be multi-ethnic bondage, it will be communal bondage, it will be bondage of human being. Coming back to the question of Minoti, where she is asking that how these theater activities could bring to the grassroots level. There are a lot of organizations who are practicing Paulo-Freire dialogues and practice in Bangladesh. They have practiced through the NGO movement. I don't know how much the NGO activities help them, but that is a kind of pseudo-Freirean activities have been practiced all around the world, especially third world and African countries with theaters. There had been a lot of literature, you may know that. For me, after watching the activities of Jannat Manch for the last 10 years, I did just finish an anthropological study, and it was been published one of the public university journal. It's not a Scopus journal, because this kind of topic, it's very rare to pick up. And I can see that this is a part of human rights education. As much children of religion school, madrasa, or mandir, or any other primary school level get engaged with theater kind of activities, perform and learn compassionate from each other and accept the color and difference of the society, it would broaden their mind. Unfortunately, in a society where I'm living, we don't have a wheelchair access in the primary school, most of the primary school. Nowadays, maybe government made a rule, and there is no ways for the simply other people with other special capacity or people who need special care, there is no access to them, even for the blind. So the way we think, we have been brought up in a society, are we not the fundamentalist who we are? We always get special access from the society, and we will always enjoy the special rights and special favor. In buses, we don't have seats for the special people, blind people. So how we do think ourselves? Are we civilized people? That is a big question to me. Coming back to the other questions, let me come back to the Professor Jian's 1976 Dramatist Performance Act. The act has been abolished by the government after 1990s when they came into power, the first new democratic government came. But there is some other kind of act. Now, if a group want to perform a play, if a friend of mine want to perform a play, especially in remote area cities, they have to negotiate with police, district commissioner, DC, that whether they're going to scrutinize, whether they're going to criticize some political personality. It was not like that. Everybody's social media have been checked. This is a kind of society. There is no surveillance like Singapore, but there is more surveillance like Singapore. It is not the reality of Bangladesh. It is everywhere in the world. And because of this new normal life and reality, the technology has made our life so specific that every step or a breath have been counted by the people who can use the technology. People could count me. So if I'm going to make a derogative comments about someone, maybe I have a chance through the connection of International Human Rights Organization, I could take a safe escape. But what will happen to my family and friends? They will be tortured by the society and hated by a society. Hating a man, human being, are you a civilized man or you are a fundamentalist? That is a basic questions. Now coming back to the question of fundamentalization and globalization impact. Globalization increases every activities. It has huge positive and negative impact, including fundamentalism. Fundamentalists now using the technology to follow the atheist, and they can narrow down where is his activity fields, and they can find them there through checking with their Facebook data and kill them in the openly. That's the kind of bad practices or bad use of globalizations or technology they are using. Fundamentalist organizations, fundamentalist people, they used to use their YouTube channels nowadays, and they make incitement, especially they used to say bad thing about girls and women and discriminate them. This is still going on. We have an ICT Act. Around the world, they have an ICT Act, but nobody could be arrested through these activities. So, and I have already said about the dialogue. Theater could create a dialogue and space for listening to the other unheard voice that is mentioned by Brecht and Professor SOHSS. I do believe it. But how are you going to find theater when everything goes online? And your product should be at your doorstep through the online base. So Professor Jamil Ahmed made an impact that they will bring your theater to your doorstep, maybe at your birthday or your special day in your drawing room. Theater should be taken to the human doorstep. People need to meet with each other. And I hope one day this virtual reality world will decrease and people will have normal communication and we'll go back to our normal life. When the social fabric of Bangladesh actually the language-based cultural movement, which ended up in liberation war. All these was struggle of war and identity crisis of Bengali national and Bangladesh for thousands of years when started play a performance of Chaitanya. Mere sich kolchir kana, tai bole ki prem debo na. You hurt me, but I won't stop loving you. Or when a Muslim performer sing a song like that, Ami ar kahare daki bogo yeshogoma Saraswati. আপন আপন জাকলাম যারে সে তো আপন নয় আমি আর কাহারে ডাকিব গো এসো গো মা সরস্বতী. So when a folk singer started performing with the name of goddess Binapani, goddess of knowledge, he never thought about that Binapani is next door or other reality. He think that this Binapani, goddess of knowledge, part of his reality, part of his culture, and he own it. If we couldn't own the culture, we could differentiate in 3 pieces, 1,000 pieces, then this kind of corrupt phenomenon of fundamentalism will burn our heart and rationality in coming ages. I don't know how much I could respond to your question. I will stop here.
Thank you. And now, before the vote of thanks, I request Minati to present your poem.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Ahmed, for your answer. And thank you, Ananta for giving me this opportunity. Actually, everybody knows that when in Karnataka, that Gauri Lankesh, Govind Pansare, and Kalburji all were murdered for their liberal writing and for their opinion and all these things. So this is that time I had written the poem Pen. That is from my book A New Dawn, and the title of the poem is Pen. It goes like this. Hello, am I audible?
Yes. Yes, you are audible.
Yeah. Pen is in pain, shivering in vain. Pen is in pain, shivering in vain. Some courage to gain, to bring back the justice reign and fight out the Cold War. You have the gun to cover the rising sun. You have the gun and you love the gun to cover the rising sun, to hide the rays of cloud. Can your bullet reach that far? A pain is silenced by bullet shots. Files are missing in the name of riots. Who are the bigots? Will the search will ever end? By silencing one, you are making thousands of Raktavirs. You will have no place to escape. It will break the invisible barrier in breakless manner. You will have no place to escape. It will break the invisible barrier in the breakless manner. As a weak is ignited with a revolt flame by the so-called weak. So now, pain is in pain, shivering in vain, looking for a courage rain. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Minati. And now, Randhir, do you have Devendra for the vote of thanks?
No, sir. Minati ji,
Okay.
I will like to invite Minati ji.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm privileged to get this opportunity to thank everyone. Today is this very auspicious occasion of this Parakram Divas and that. Okay. I, Minati Pradhan, on the behalf of SOHSS Chakra and the Vishwaneedam Center for Asian Blossoming Center, I thank our chief speaker, Dr. Ahmed Abid, forgive me if I'm not pronouncing correctly, for his very insightful and very deep presentation and very interesting presentation. It was a new dimension for me. I believe it will be for other people also to learn so many things. I would like to thank our moderator, Professor Kumar Giri, for arranging such beautiful themes on every week. I also would like to thank Professor John Clement for his insightful comments, observation, and questions and opinions, which actually, inspire us to think in another dimension also. I would like to thank Professor Ganguly for his consistent present for all the webinars and for his questions. I would like to thank Professor Kalpana Purohit for her question and for her comments, and some other participants also, Professor Purnima Jain and Mr. Saji Varghese, Professor Saji Varghese for his comments. And I would also like to thank Draupadi Ghosh and whoever all asked the question and remain present with us in our Google platform and in our Facebook platform to learn along with us. At the last, not the least, I would like to thank our convener, Professor Randhir Kumar Gautam, for arranging everything and executing it very beautifully. So, pardon me if I'm leaving someone. So, thank you all.
So, thank you all, friends. So, we will soon conclude, and we wish to say that on 30th of January, so which is also an equally inviting day for us. So we have the launch of a journal, Ahimsa, Nonviolence, with which some of us are associated, Randhir, myself, John. So it would be from 5 to 6 p.m. Isn't it, Randhir?
Yes, sir. 5 to 6.
So we would invite you to join us. And we, in our Swadhyaya Sohchakra, we do not also want to miss a day as our Sohchakra dialogue. So we are also planning to hold a dialogue on Gandhi and Martin Luther King, possibly around 7:30 to 9 p.m. So we request your kind participation and enthusiasm. So looking forward to. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much for your kind participation.
Bye.
Bye.